Hey, how you going? Video number 2. What I've done a little bit more since you last seen it. I've done some shading. I've darkened this area up here with a 2B pencil and put some more definitions through there. I've really done some work on the wrinkles under the nose and shaded this whole area. Basically what I did was used a 3H through that whole area and went over with a HB and very lightly with a 2B in some sections. I've done a little bit of work up here too. I've just darkened some of these areas up. I've used mainly 2B. Once I get to the eye is going to be pretty much almost black, so I'll do that in 4B. What I wanted to show you is I've got to a certain point with the shading there. So what I'm doing now, I'm not going to put the picture, the little corner picture in this video. It took a lot of work and it took a couple of hours to actually process, so it's a bit of a waste of time. If you want the other picture as a reference, I'll send it to you and you can have a look at it there. But the shark's got some markings around the nose, around this area, and obviously goes down through its back in a dark area, but it kind of bleeds out through here, and then it's got little pits on its nose. I believe they're called something like ampullae of Lorenzini, which is sensory organs of the shark, so it can detect electrical impulses in the water, and it's got quite a few of these dots, and they're, you know, really quite visible. Got to try to make them a little bit more random than I've put them in because they look really straight. And I said to you one time before that doing a picture bigger means more detail. You know, the smaller it is, the easier it is to hide the detail on it. So if I'm doing a whole shark like I have done before, you know, you don't see these type of things. So I'm just going to put some random dots in and around the place. It's a bit hard to see because I'm trying to look over the top of this little contraption that I've made to hold the phone. I've really got to try to blend this up as well. I'm using a 2B at the moment, but I'm only using it very lightly. I'm really kind of not finished with this area, but I've kind of got tired of it and I really need to do something else before I come back and have another look at it. And it was around these parts here that I started to become, okay, this is when I really need to do the, you know, the creases and try to get them to look a little bit better before I move on with anything else. It's a bit like the teeth I told you about the other night, where I was I'm avoiding doing them because they look a bit difficult, so I'll do them eventually. Well, I'll do my best anyway. But the reason I'm doing this video here is just to show you a few more little tricks with a few bits and pieces. But I started shading just before I got on. Some of these areas are very dark and some are quite light, and I've just given them a basic shade. At the moment I'm using a tissue as a blender. I think tissues can be very good for blending a big area very lightly. I'm only using this very lightly too, just to try to blend in some of that, make it not look as rough. It looks a lot rougher on the film than it does, not film, not really film, but you know, through the naked eye. I'm try to blend that shadow through there as well. Okay, a couple of things I did want to show you with my stuff. Generally with the pencils and that, I'll just use my pencil sharpener for that. It works really well, sharpens the pencils nicely. I don't just use the tissue for blending. I use that on large areas or little tiny bits that I don't really need. Other than that, I'll use a blending stump. I found they don't work too well in pencil sharpeners, so I use a blade, to sharpen that with. You've got to be careful with blending stumps that if you use it on a 2B area, that you don't go over. Forget you've got 2B graphite on there and you don't go to a really light area and start using 2B, or else it'll get really messy. And of course they come in all sorts of different sizes. I like using this one for little small areas that just need a little touch up or a push. I have this eraser, which I think you have one as well that you can extend. I generally cut them into a nice edge. I don't know if it's not coming up very clearly. And that way you can actually get in and just take out a little straight line, maybe a hair or something. And I've also got this one, which is really good. It's a pencil eraser that you can sharpen into a point. Best way I found to do that again is by a blade. The thing I do like about it, on the other end, it's got a brush. Instead of blowing your work, you should never blow your work. If you've got something on your work, you just give it a push off with this, and you try not to do it too hard or else you can smudge it. Or you use a tissue. The same tissue I've used to blend, I'll just give it a light little sweep and it takes pretty much everything off. Or you can use a razor blade. You can buy those from the shop fairly cheaply. Deadly sharp. And the last one is a kneadable eraser. I think you've seen this before. It's a lot like blue tack. It comes apart like blue tack, so you can you pull a bit off and you can roll it in your fingers and make it into a point if you like. Make it into an edge. So if you wanted to make a slight edge, for example, and then go in here and take some of the paper out, and that's why another reason that I tend to draw very lightly is because when I want to use the kneadable eraser or the eraser pencil, that the graphite comes off the paper very easily. Sometimes too easily. If I dab this on there, a lot of that will actually come off. And that's what I'm hoping to do, hoping to pull out little, a few highlights. Oh, and just one more thing in regards to the kneadable eraser. I haven't tried it yet, and I don't know if it's very much the same. It looks pretty much the same. It feels the same as blue tack. I'm not sure what kind of residue blue tack will leave on your picture, but I mean you can mould it almost exactly the same. You can probably give that a go if you've got some blue tack lying around the house, and just try it as an experiment. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is pull out some highlights and see how we go with that. So it doesn't take much to, I'm probably going to put my hand right over the drawing, but it's just a little, just take a little bit out, and you can see as I've gone along there, it's actually pulled, that was a mistake. I pulled quite a bit out and I've only really touched it quite lightly, but there is a part in that which does actually go straight across there, so it's not too bad. We can fix it out later, so you can either drag it across like I've just done, or you can put it on and dab. And you can see by dabbing it, it actually lifts quite a bit of graphite off that you probably can't see. It's very dark, but it's pulled a lot of graphite off of it, which is okay. We haven't done a lot to this paper, so it'll be fairly easy to go back over the top. I'll put a little bit more in there. but that is a bit of a highlight. It does go across the top of the nose, not quite that high. But you can see what I was talking about as far as being, if you want to say that, kind to your paper and not pressing too hard at the start. You can, it's more workable. You can pull things off, put things back on, and do what I've just done here. Okay, I've worked it a little bit. I didn't want that quite as severe as it was, but I've got it back a little bit now. There's not that much to pull out of here, but around the jaw there are some very slight highlights, so you can flatten this out a little bit and just give it a bit of a roll and try to take out a bit of lightness here and there. I don't know if that's coming out very well in the video. So where I've kind of very evenly shaded, I can use this just to pull out some little highlights and some lighter areas, and it'll kind of give a bit of a mottled effect. Whereas with the blending or the shading would have taken a lot longer. With this you can just use, here it just breaks it up just slightly. And it looks like, you could call it cheating, but it looks like you've done a lot more work than you have. And I'm not too happy with those ending the way they are. I really haven't done much of that side of the face at the moment, so I'll just pull some of that off. I do have to do some work in here. There's a lot of light and dark in there which I haven't done yet. And like I said, within here, within the dots, there's also other dots, so you can just try to make a point and hit and try to take some of those out. Make it a bit dotty. Just drop my pencil, not good. And then go in with a little bit more, maybe some dark ones. Which have already got some light ones in there now. And then perhaps just give it a bit of a blend so it's not too sharp or distinct. Another thing with this kneadable eraser too is when you're rolling it around in your fingers, you're going to get body oils on it, and whatever body oils you put on there is going to transfer straight onto your picture as well. And I've noticed that there's not a huge transition from this side of the mouth to that side of the mouth as far as shading's going, so I'm just trying to lighten this area up a bit so it doesn't look as harsh on that area there where it transitions through. But there are some definite white lines, or lighter lines coming through here, with the lights hitting the higher point of the wrinkle, which should be about there. Well, you don't have to just use the kneadable eraser, you can also use any eraser you like, and as long as it gets the job done. If you just want to take a little bit out, this can work. Or I don't know if you've seen me, I've actually got one of those Staedtler erasers, and I've cut a little tiny slither off of it. Then I've used that, really sharp edge, and that's what I generally use to pull hair. Well, pull hair, but to make hair, where you want to take a really fine spike line. These are just kind of finishing off techniques that you'd probably more or less do later in a picture, or when you're not quite sure how you're going with something, you just want to have a quick look to see how it feels. And I'm kind of liking that at the moment. I think that's looking alright. Well, that's 15 minutes already, so what I'll do now is I'll leave it at that. What I'm going to do when I'm off is I'm going to define some of the dark areas in here, probably with a 2B pencil. Try to make that more of a rounded shape. If you want to cross section it, so it's a round shape because it's a wrinkle, so I'm going to define that a little bit more, and I'm going to carry on down this side of the shark here. Maybe put a bit of light shading through here and then carry on with the dark. At the moment I'm kind of not sure how this picture is going to turn out, because a lot of the darkness of the shark comes down here, and there's a lot of heavy shading underneath. You can't see it, but the bottom area there, there's a lot of heavy shading around there. So once I do that, I'll get a better idea of what the whole picture is going to look like. Until next time, Uru.